Betrayal dressed in love, a fortunate stake, and a trap set to destroy. Welcome to a tale of cunning and revenge that'll keep you glued to your screen. Buckle up, this one's a wild ride. Hey, Revenza Tales fans, get ready for a jaw-dropping revenge saga that'll leave you speechless. Smash that subscribe button, hit the like, and drop a comment to join the thrill. Let's dive into the vows of betrayal. The church bells rang with a hollow joy the day I became Mrs. Emily Carter. Stained glass windows cast crimson and sapphire beams across pews packed with Carter kin, high society elites, and tycoons who judged worth by wealth and lineage. The Carter name was a fortress of power, tradition, and untouchable prestige. Marrying into their dynasty felt like stepping onto a golden pedestal. I believed I had secured my place among them. I was dead wrong. James Carter stood at the altar, his tailored suit framing his sharp jawline, his smile a polished weapon that had charmed me from our first meeting. I told myself his love was genuine, not a scheme to claim my father's sprawling real estate empire. As we sealed our vows with a kiss, the crowd's applause thundered, and I dared to dream of a fairy tale life. But the Carters had written a far darker script for me. The first cracks were subtle, like shadows creeping across a sunlit room. After the wedding, we moved into the Carter estate, a grand colonial mansion nestled in fog-shrouded hills, its marble halls and crystal chandeliers radiating cold opulence. The air carried traces of lavender and wax, but the house felt like a prison, not a home. James's mother, Evelyn, ruled with regal authority, her silver hair impeccable, her smile sharp as a blade cloaked in silk. She embraced me warmly, but her eyes sized me up like a jeweler inspecting a flawed gem. "You'll fit splendidly, Emily," she said over tea, her sapphire necklace glinting ominously. "In time, you'll learn what it means to be a Carter." Her words held a hidden threat, and my uneasy laugh betrayed my naivety. James was attentive at first, showering me with roses, candlelit dinners, and whispered promises of forever. But soon, his suggestions carried a calculated edge. "Why not let Father's financial team manage your trust fund?" he asked one evening, swirling his wine with casual ease. "It would simplify our future together." My father's death had left me a vast inheritance, properties, stocks, accounts, all guarded by my trusted advisors. "I'll consider it," I replied, masking the unease knotting my stomach. James's smile tightened, a fleeting crack in his polished facade. Months bled into each other, and the Carter mansion became a gilded cage. My autonomy eroded, each choice subtly stripped away. My accounts were consolidated into Carter-controlled trusts, managed by their loyal advisors. James's father, Robert, a towering man with a voice like thunder, called it tradition. "One family, one fortune," he boomed at dinner, his fork slicing the air. "It's how the Carters have thrived for centuries." Evelyn nodded, her wineglass poised delicately. "Independence is isolating, Emily. You'll see the wisdom of unity soon." I forced a smile, but dread coiled inside me like a serpent awakening. The truth struck one crisp autumn night as I slipped into the study, unnoticed. James stood with his back to me, his voice a low growl on the phone. "It's nearly done. Her assets will be under Carter control by spring. She's clueless, trusts me completely." My heart froze, my breath caught in my throat. I retreated silently, my mind racing like a trapped animal. The dinners, the gifts, the tender moments, they were all lies. I wasn't a wife, I was prey in their game. The realization sharpened my senses. Evelyn's guidance was manipulation, her warmth a calculated mask. Robert's lectures on family were chains disguised as loyalty. James's affection was a trap, baited with charm. I played my part flawlessly, smiling at their talk of legacy, nodding at James's routine paperwork, but signing nothing. I was no longer their fool. I needed evidence to fight back. In the dead of night, while James slept, I crept back to the study. My fingers rifled through drawers, scanned ledgers, and sifted through encrypted emails. At first, I found only fragments, vague memos, coded transactions. Then, in a locked drawer, I uncovered a leather-bound file labeled Carter Asset Integration Plan. It mapped my inheritance like a battlefield, detailing every property, account, and stock, with timelines for their absorption. Beside my name, in James's precise handwriting, was a note that chilled my blood: post-transfer options, annulment or elimination. Elimination. The word echoed in my mind, my hands trembling as I gripped the file. I wasn't just a target, I was expendable. I confided in no one. My old friends had been distanced, my advisors replaced by Carter allies. My world had been reshaped to cage me, but fear forged into resolve. They thought me soft, gullible, a trophy to be claimed. That was their fatal error. I began my counterstrike. I photographed every page, uploaded them to a secure cloud drive, and mailed copies to a lawyer my father trusted, far beyond the Carters' reach. I played the perfect wife, docile, adoring, compliant, while my mind churned with plans. Evelyn called me elegant, Robert praised my commitment, and James kissed my cheek, murmuring about our shared future. Each smile I returned hid a growing fury. The opportunity came at the Carter Gala, a glittering spectacle of power and privilege. The mansion shimmered with chandeliers, packed with senators, CEOs, and media tycoons. Evelyn draped me in her heirloom emeralds, a symbol of my place in their dynasty. James paraded me through the crowd, his arm possessive, his smile a performance for the elite. In the shadows, I saw William Hayes, a gruff attorney who'd worked with my father before falling out with the Carters. He raised his glass subtly, a signal of alliance. Later, in a quiet alcove, he spoke softly, his voice rough with urgency. "Emily, you've got your father's fire when you're cornered." My throat tightened. "Do you know what they're planning?" His expression darkened. "I've seen their playbook. They don't marry for love, they marry for assets. You're not their first mark." "Then help me," I whispered, glancing over my shoulder. He nodded, his voice a low growl. "I will, but tread carefully. The Carters always strike first." His warning proved true. Days later, James slid a stack of papers across the breakfast table. "Just minor transfers," he said, his tone smooth as silk. "No need to dig into the details." I stared at the pen he offered, then at his calm, expectant face. "I'll review them tonight," I said, setting the pen down. His jaw twitched, a hairline fracture in his composure. That evening, Evelyn appeared in my bedroom doorway, uninvited. Her voice was soft, almost maternal, but her words dripped with menace. "The Carters value loyalty, Emily. Sign the papers. It's the only way to stay part of this family." Her hand rested on my arm, her grip cold and firm, her perfume sharp as poison. I met her gaze without flinching. "Thank you, Evelyn. I'll consider it." She left, but her threat lingered like a storm cloud. I knew time was running out. If I didn't act soon, I wouldn't survive. Surrounded by enemies who shared my home, my table, my life, I began to weave my revenge. The Carter estate was a maze of polished marble and hidden motives, where every door concealed a secret and every smile hid a blade. Survival demanded deception, and I wore my mask daily. To James, I was the devoted wife, all tender glances and soft laughter. To Evelyn, I was the obedient daughter-in-law, nodding at her every command. To Robert, I was the pliant heiress, ready to surrender my fortune to their empire. But behind my facade, every gesture was a tactic, every word a step toward their downfall. One misstep, and I'd be reduced to a signature on a grave marker. My first move was to build a covert alliance. William Hayes, my father's old attorney, became my shadow partner. We met in secret, a dive bar on the city's edge, a foggy park at dawn, never the same place twice. William shared stories of others scarred by the Carters, a cousin in Boston, stripped of his inheritance through a family trust, a widow who swore her husband's fatal crash was no accident. "The Carters didn't rise through clever deals," William said over coffee, his voice grim. "They fed on their own, spouses, kin, anyone with assets to claim." "I'm next on their list," I murmured, my hands tightening around my cup. His eyes softened, but his tone was steel. "Not if you strike first, Emily." I began with James. His charm was a polished act, but his carelessness was my opening. By night, I studied his habits, the way he left his phone unlocked on the nightstand, its screen betraying his secrets, the way his laptop hummed, never fully shut down. One evening, as the shower roared, I accessed his emails. A thread with a New York lawyer glowed on the screen. "Once her assets transfer, file the annulment. Keep it clean, irreconcilable differences, no scandal." My pulse thundered, but my fingers were steady. They were already planning my erasure. I forwarded the email to a hidden account, encrypted it, and sent a copy to William. The first piece of my arsenal was secured. Next, I targeted Evelyn. Her weakness was her vanity. She thrived on adoration, hosting lavish teas for her elite circle, basking in their praise of the Carter legacy. I played the eager bride, clapping at her tails, pouring her champagne, mirroring her poise. But my ears were sharp, catching every slip. At one tea, the wine loosened her tongue, and she leaned toward her confidant, Patricia. "James has played his part perfectly," she whispered, her lips curling with smugness. "Emily's fortune is nearly ours. She hasn't a clue." Patricia laughed, clinking her glass. "You Carters always win." Evelyn's eyes gleamed with triumph. "We don't play games we can't control." My flute trembled in my hand, but I excused myself with a smile, retreating to jot down every damning word. Later, I recorded a whispered recount of her confession, disguised as a journal entry, and sent it to William. Another weapon forged. Robert was a harder mark, a strategist who saw every move before it was made. His obsession wasn't pride or recklessness, it was immortality. He craved a legacy that would echo through history, funding museums, commissioning statues, courting senators to etch the Carter name in stone. And he documented every detail with obsessive precision. One moonless night, as the estate slept, I slipped into his study. James's keys, carelessly left on a hook, unlocked the heavy oak door. Shelves sagged under ledgers, each page a blueprint of the Carter machine. I found records of my assets, my father's properties, my investments, charted like spoils of war. In a hidden drawer, I uncovered surveillance reports. My calls, my emails, my coffee runs, tracked since before the wedding. They'd been stalking me from the moment James proposed. Rage burned in my chest, but I forced calm, photographing pages, copying files, and slipping back to bed before dawn. Another shard of evidence locked away. Evidence alone wouldn't topple them. To destroy the Carters, I needed to turn their own stage against them. The chance came at dinner, when Evelyn's voice cut through the clink of silverware. "This year's Carter Foundation Gala will be at the estate," she announced, her gaze pinning me like a specimen. "It's time the world sees our newest daughter shine." The gala, a glittering parade of power brokers, media moguls, and influencers, all under the Carter roof. A perfect battlefield. "I'd be honored," I said, my voice honeyed, my heart racing. This was my moment. The weeks before the gala were a high-wire act. James vanished on business trips, his phone buzzing with coded calls. Evelyn obsessed over every detail: gown fittings, guest lists, crystal centerpieces. Robert polished his speech, a hymn to Carter greatness. I played the eager bride, practicing my smile, trying on dresses, nodding at Evelyn's commands. But in stolen moments, I built my arsenal. With William's help, I compiled a dossier: James's emails, Evelyn's recorded boasts, Robert's ledgers, and surveillance logs. It was a portrait of greed, painted in their own words. I planned the strike with surgical precision. Hidden USB drives, preloaded with evidence, would override the gala's projectors. A tiny camera, tucked in my clutch, would stream the chaos live. The Carters wanted a spectacle. I'd deliver one that would burn their empire to ash. The gala night arrived, the estate ablaze with golden light. Chandeliers sparkled, casting reflections on polished floors. Laughter mingled with the clink of glasses, and a violin quartet wove melodies through the air. Evelyn glided in sapphire velvet, her smile commanding the room. James, sharp in a black tuxedo, charmed a cluster of congressmen. Robert, his presence towering, rehearsed his speech in a corner. I wore a silver gown, the picture of Carter perfection, but beneath it, sewn into the hem, was a remote trigger. One press, and their world would collapse. As the night peaked, Robert took the stage, his voice booming with gravitas. He spoke of the Carter Foundation's unwavering commitment to progress, his words met with polite applause. I stood near the stage, my pulse a drumbeat, my fingers grazing the remote. I pressed it. The screen behind Robert flickered, the Carter crest vanishing. In its place, James's email glowed: "Once her assets transfer, file the annulment." The room gasped, a collective intake of breath. Robert's voice faltered, his face paling. Evelyn's champagne flute slipped, shattering on the floor. The screen shifted, playing Evelyn's voice, smug and damning. "Emily's fortune is nearly ours. She hasn't a clue." Whispers erupted, phones lit up, cameras flashed. James shoved through the crowd shouting, "Cut the feed." I pressed the remote again. Robert's ledgers appeared, pages of asset grabs, shady deals, and accidental deaths. The crowd roared, politicians huddling, reporters scribbling furiously. Then my voice echoed through the speakers, calm and cutting. The Carters saw me as a prize to plunder, a name to erase. I am not their first victim, but I will be their last. Chaos swallowed the room. James lunged toward me, his eyes blazing with fury. "You'll pay for this," he hissed, his hand grazing my arm. Evelyn screamed, "It's all lies. She's delusional." But the evidence was ironclad, streaming live to the world. William, in the crowd, gave a faint nod, his phone sharing the feed with his contacts. The Carter name was unraveling in real time. But they weren't broken yet. James grabbed my wrist, his grip bruising, his voice a snarl. "This isn't over." I yanked free, my smile cold. The trap was sprung, but the war was far from won. The gala erupted into chaos. Guests scattered like startled doves, their refined chatter replaced by frantic murmurs and hurried phone calls. Reporters wove through the crowd, their cameras capturing footage that would dominate headlines worldwide. Senators huddled in shadows, whispering strategies to distance themselves from the toxic Carter name. The once invincible Carters stood exposed under the chandeliers, their empire crumbling like ash in the wind. James's fists clenched, his face ghostly pale, his eyes darting like a hunted beast. Evelyn's commands turned shrill, her voice fracturing with desperation. Robert gripped the podium, his towering frame suddenly frail, as if the weight of truth had broken his spirit. I stepped forward, calm amidst the storm, my voice cutting through the uproar. "This is the Carter dynasty laid bare, a legacy forged in deceit, built on stolen fortunes, and sustained by ruined lives. Tonight, their reign of lies ends forever." The crowd froze, some clapping hesitantly, others recording every word with trembling phones. Robert's voice roared back, ragged with fury. "Lies! Slander! You dare defile the Carter name in our own sanctuary." But his allies flinched, slipping toward exits, their loyalty evaporating. A congresswoman hissed to her aide, "We can't be tied to this catastrophe," and they vanished into the night. William Hayes emerged from the crowd, clutching a thick dossier, his voice steady as iron. "Every document, every recording, every clip tonight has been authenticated. I represent multiple victims. Lawsuits will hit by dawn." The ballroom erupted again, gasps and murmurs colliding like a tempest. Evelyn wailed, "This is unthinkable," before collapsing into a velvet chair, her diamond bracelet snapping, jewels scattering across the marble like fallen stars. James lunged toward me, his breath hot with venom. "You think this is victory? You'll be penniless, ruined, when this storm passes." I met his glare, my resolve unyielding. "No, James. My only mistake was trusting your lies. Tonight, I rewrite that error." Within hours, the Carter scandal flooded the internet. Headlines screamed, "Carter Empire shattered in gala exposé." Lawmakers flee amid fraud allegations. Heiress unveils century of Carter corruption. News outlets looped the damning evidence, Evelyn's slurred confession, James's annulment email, Robert's incriminating ledgers, each replay a nail in their coffin. The fortress they'd built on fear and manipulation buckled under the glare of truth. But my vengeance wasn't complete. Evidence was my blade, now the law would wield it. William's legal team filed injunctions, freezing Carter assets pending investigation. Victims emerged from the shadows, disinherited relatives, betrayed partners, widows seeking justice for accidents, their lawsuits piling like kindling. The Carters fought back, James vowing countersuits, Robert rallying his legal army, Evelyn cashing in every favor. But the tide had turned. Courts sensed blood, journalists dug deeper, and I held the irrefutable truth. Inside the estate, the air grew toxic. Evelyn terrorized staff with paranoid outbursts, her elegance shattered. James paced like a caged beast, his charm curdled into rage. Robert retreated to his study, poring over documents, his dreams of legacy in ashes. I moved through their halls like a specter, silent and untouchable. One stormy night, James cornered me in the library, shadows dancing across his twisted face. "You've destroyed everything," he snarled, his voice echoing off oak shelves. Do you grasp the ruin you've caused? Yes, I replied, my voice calm as ice. You'll regret this. Without us, you're nothing. My laughter cut through the dark, sharp and unyielding. Without me, James, your secrets are exposed. You're the one who's nothing now. He slammed his fist into the wall, splintering wood, his rage a futile storm. You'll pay for every second of this. But fear no longer held me. I was the tempest now. The final blow fell at the Carter board meeting. They'd mustered their remaining influence to salvage their empire, the boardroom thick with tension, shareholders restless. Robert began his speech, proclaiming resilience against temporary setbacks. Mid-sentence, William and I entered, flanked by federal investigators. Silence fell like a guillotine. I now control the pivotal shares, I announced, sliding documents onto the mahogany table. By law, assets tied to my inheritance revert to me, effective immediately. Gasps erupted, chairs scraping as board members recoiled. Evelyn flushed crimson, screaming, "This is treachery." But Robert knew, his eyes met mine, hollow with defeat. His empire was gone. "You've obliterated us," he whispered, his voice breaking. "No," I countered. "Your greed sealed your fate. I merely showed the world the truth." Investigators seized files, confiscating drives as cameras flashed outside. The Carter dynasty, forged in betrayal, sustained by illusion, dissolved into history. The aftermath was merciless. Evelyn vanished from society, her name a synonym for scandal. James faced indictments for fraud and conspiracy, his charm buried in courtroom humiliation. Robert withered, a once titan now a recluse haunted by irrelevance. As for me, I walked away unbroken. My father's legacy restored, my independence fortified, my narrative reclaimed. Beyond riches, I embraced liberation. I had plunged into the depths of deception, endured its claws, and emerged forged anew, resilient, vigilant, invincible. The Carters viewed our union as conquest. They overlooked a vital truth: the hunted can hunt. Betrayal may wear the mask of love, but truth and courage can shatter even the mightiest empires. Never underestimate the power of those wronged, for their silence may hide a storm of retribution. True strength lies in reclaiming your own story, not in bowing to manipulation. Legacy endures through integrity, not deceit. That's all for this epic tale, Revenza Tales fans. If this story set your pulse racing, smash that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and share this video with your friends to spread the revenge. Subscribe now and hit the bell so you never miss our next thrilling saga. See you in the next one.